This is the story of a great experiment, a test of strength between modern science and an ancient scourge. The lands ravaged by malaria are the black spots of the earth. From among these black spots, men chose one to be their testing ground, a place standing alone, cursed by malaria since time immemorial, the island of Sardinia. Here live a people of proud ancestry, a people who after many centuries still fight the lonely battle for existence. In tiny villages, they live as they have always done, huddled together against banditry and the fears which always lurk in a peasant land. Simple threads make the pattern of their living: birth and death, ancient craftsmanship, and the strength that comes from religious faith and common hardship.
They tell us that our land is the poorest in all Italy. I cannot say. All I know is Sardinia, and life there is hard. They tell us that only 70 years ago our land was rich with trees and green forests. But when they cut the trees, the rains washed our soils into the rivers, and the wind blew it away in dust. Today in Sardinia, if you want to live, you've got to fight. When people are poor, their children are weak and sick, malnutrition, tuberculosis, dysentery. These are what the doctor finds. And then, of course, malaria. That breaks a child's will to fight. If you had 2 children, one would often be dead before it learned to walk. Each year it came, the malaria, the shivering fever. And when we felt it, we had to take to our beds. Thousands and thousands of men too sick to work, and the life went out of our land. The oranges, they rotted on the Campidano. The vines of Dorgali grew untended. The fishing boats of Cabras lay idle on the beaches. On the dam of the Flumendosa, that was to bring us water and power, no man worked. Each year, the malaria came, like the winds from the west and the blossoms on the almonds, as if it was sent from God and not the devil.
They called it the malaria, the bad air. But it came not from the air, nor from the trees, but from the silent waters, the placid mountain pools, the green swamps and quiet marshlands. There lurked death. Larvae, born each season from eggs. Larvae harmless as yet. Later, the pupa, harmless again. Then, from the pupa, a thing, smaller than a fly, a little thing, that for thousands of men, women, and children would mean disease and death. Master of an island, a mosquito. On newfound wings, the mosquitoes flew to the homes of men, lurking in corners, waiting for sunrise or sunset. For dawn and dusk was when they sought their food, the blood of human beings. Feeding from the sick, carrying the sickness on to the healthy. Tiny wings that over a whole island cast the shadow of death.
It was in 1946 that we first arrived in force at Cagliari, Sardinia's capital and chief port. First thing was to set up offices and general headquarters. We called ourselves ERLAS, that's short for an Italian mouthful, Regional Organization for the Anti-Anopheline Campaign in Sardinia. That was us. Our chief was Dr. John Logan of the Rockefeller Foundation, which was directing the campaign. Under him, an international force, Italian, American, British, Canadian, Dutch, Singhalese. Into the port came equipment and supplies. UNRWA was backing the project to the tune of £1.25 million sterling. Jeeps, trucks, and DDT. DDT by the ton. Our experts were kept busy training a small army of local people, recruited from all jobs and classes. Lawyers and school teachers, students and farmers. Their task? It was the task of all of us. To wipe out every malaria-carrying mosquito in the whole of Sardinia.
Then, in every town and village, they told the people of the coming battle for their island. On the one side, a killer, tiny, but in countless numbers. On the other, science, and the people of Sardinia. And so they moved into battle, from Sassari in the north to Ciulada in the south, even into Gorni and Mara, Asuni and Villanova, into every city, town, and lonely village on a fever-ridden island. A strange invasion, watched by a people philosophical and calm, a people taught by fate to hope for much and expect but little.
No, I don't think many of them believed all this about mosquitoes, but they welcomed us just the same. We didn't mind what they thought as long as they let us in, for in there were the adult mosquitoes sheltering for the winter. With DDT, we sprayed every house and every room, every farm building and every shed, millions of them. To keep a check, each house had a little card pinned inside its front door, while on the outside we stenciled a number giving the date of the job. We did every church, every tower, and every belfry, every bridge, every wall, and every hut. We even sprayed the prehistoric ruins, empty of life for thousands of years, empty except for mosquitoes. Tall buildings too high for spraying got special treatment with an aerosol machine. This pumped in DDT fog, which penetrated up into every corner. By the end of February 1948, we'd sprayed every building in Sardinia, and some of them twice. Every man-built structure on this island of 1,200,000 people.
So much for the adult mosquitoes. But in the waters, nature was still at work, creating life to pass on death. One female mosquito left alive reproduces her kind 100-fold. Eggs into larvae, larvae into pupa, pupa into mosquitoes. in the waters, a never-ending cycle.
For the fight against the larvae, we split the whole island into regions. Each region into divisions, each division into sections, each section into districts. Boundaries were carefully and precisely marked, so each worker knew exactly which places were his responsibility and which were his neighbors. The job depended for the most part on local people, on the district chiefs, each with his team. Men who knew their country like we know our own backyard. Around a convenient center, where possible a town or a village, the work was planned out on a map. Each sector represented one man's area, one man's responsibility. From a local dump, each drew his ammunition, enough DDT dissolved in oil for a day's work. From then on, he was on his own. Now, though the larvae live in the water, they must breathe air at the surface. When sprayed, the fine oil emulsion spreads itself automatically, carrying with it the deadly DDT. Each larvicide, as he was called, had to spray every known breeding place in his sector once every week. Pool, stream, canal, or swamp. Behind the larviciders came intelligence squads, scouts to check that the work had been thoroughly done and to find undiscovered breeding places. As reports came in from the field, one thing became terribly clear. Though the total number of larvae was being greatly reduced, there were far too many left. Too many pockets of resistance in unexpected places. To cope with the vast areas of swamp, we tried planes, pumping out aerosol down to the waters underneath. But though they flew again and again, the aerosol failed to penetrate the thickest reeds. And the mountains had brought their own kind of trouble. Deep in thick shrub, overgrown and choked with brambles, so many breeding places were tough to reach, often impossible. For the larviciders, it was no picnic. All regional headquarters, marshland and mountain, began to pass on the same story, tough going and ever-increasing difficulties. Then it came home to us. The job was even bigger than we'd bargained for. We had to make a vital decision. In order to succeed, every drop of water on the island must be drained or cleared. Every drop of water in all the thousands of square miles of Sardinia. July 48, we applied to the Italian government for a further £1.75 million from its Marshall Aid funds. More money, more equipment, more men. Yeah, we brought them in by the hundred, until by September 48, Erlis was indeed an army. 32,000 men.
Over 10,000 square miles, the battle was joined. Digging, ditching, burning, drying out the stagnant marshlands. The swamplands of Tortoli, Siniscola, and Porto Torres. Up in the mountains of the Limbara and the Solsis, hacking the tangle from the pools and streams, rooting out the boulders, freeing the waters to wash away the larvae. Behind this army came the scouts, singly and in groups, raiding across country, patiently checking all possible breeding places. Squads searching, scouring the hills, systematically seeking out every tiny pool, every hoofprint and puddle. Along the endless miles of lonely coast, on the slopes of the high Gennargentu, into every hole and corner. For them, nowhere was too far, nowhere too difficult.
One day, a scout comes. All right, so he has to come. He checks all the larvae hiding in our district. And of course, he don't come when we are there. Oh no, he makes a dip here, he makes a dip there, to see what he can find. And in one pool, what he finds is plenty. Then he brings what he finds to our village headquarters. And it is then that I say to myself, somebody's gonna get into plenty of trouble. He speaks with the chief. And then the chief, he speaks with, who do you think? With me. And I say, what could I say? I say, santi del paradiso, che ci posso fare? Sono le zanzare, tu fa quello che vuoi, ma quelli sono zanzare, zanzare, zanzare.
And now, after 3 years' work, where do we stand? Malaria's been wiped out, all right, but we were trying to do something else as well. To eliminate from a large area a kind of mosquito that had been breeding there for centuries. Have we succeeded? Well, science is not easily satisfied. So just let's say that success is in sight. And we've learned things which will help in the battle against malaria all over the world.
This is our village, one warm spring day in 1950. Down to the square comes Angelo, our town crier. He smiles, as he always smiles when he knows something that we do not know. But this time there is a special reason for his smile. This time he tells us that for an entire year there have been no fresh cases of malaria in all our province. That day we danced the old dances. Not just for my sister's wedding, but for all Sardinia. It is true that we are poor, and we may still be poor for a long time yet. But now, we are no longer sick. Now, we can fight.
Now men and machines can work on the Campidano. Useless swamp can be turned into rich farming land. Now the dam on the Flu Mendoza is complete, and many other projects are underway. A poor land and a poor people, but a people filled with newborn hope. The bad air, the malaria, has gone. Now begins a new adventure in Sardinia.